Hello, I'm Dr. Kenneth Goldberg. I'd like to offer a simple and quick explanation of my model, the homework trap. The homework trap child starts school just like any other child with a normal amount of energy and enthusiasm. That child is happy to go to school, and you are happy to have your child in school. The teacher gives some work, and you feel some responsibility to help your child get the work done. But as things go on, the child finds the work harder and harder to get done, and the child moves from being a happy student to one who's not so happy about being in school and not so happy about education. Where my children went to school, we had two teachers by the time they hit the upper elementary school levels, and the one child that I had who was homework trapped started to get a lot of disciplinary responses coming down on him. So more people got involved trying to correct his behavior. By middle school, there's already 4 or 5 different teachers involved, and the child who couldn't handle homework in the elementary school grades has that much more difficulty handling the homework when they hit this higher grade where they have different people with homework converging at the same time. So more people get involved trying to get your child to comply, and the child ends up getting angry in response, but still does not actually do the work. And in our picture here, the child is not levering up. If anything, you're getting crushed down. By high school, the numbers of people involved increase dramatically. Everybody's on your child's case, and in a sense, your child is lost to education, and you feel totally crushed. If your child happens to be an athlete, it gets particularly devastating because up until high school, sports were available on a community-based level. Once a child's in high school, sports center around the high school's teams, and if the child loses athletic eligibility, that's a setup for the child to go to negative peer groups. Underlying this whole problem is the fact that we operate under the myth of motivation. The default assumption that almost always takes place is that the child could do the work if he just tried, he's just not trying hard enough. Well, the truth is the child's performance is an interaction of interests and skills in which a child who has skill and success is going to have greater interest, and the child who likes to do something is going to develop better skills. But the key to making change is not to focus on the interest motivation side, but on the skill side. And this is because with homework trapped children, there is often an underlying, what I call under the radar learning problem. The problem is usually in the area of either working memory or processing speed. Working memory has to do with the child's ability to listen to what's said and hold on to it. It manifests in problems with paying attention. One could think of the Peanuts cartoon and Linus sitting in class hearing the teacher go wah, wah, wah. The child with working memory problems really doesn't hold on to a lot of things that are said. Processing speed has to do with the ability of the child has to work at a reasonable pace. The culprits are usually handwriting speed or reading speed. But if your child is slow in either of these areas, it's just going to be very difficult to get the homework done in a reasonable amount of time. And time is a very important issue when you look at the principles of the homework trap. Because the school day is bound by the clock. It starts and stops by the clock, maybe starts at 9, ends at 3. So even if the child works a little more slowly than the other children, has problems with paying attention, handwriting, reading, the teacher can come over, the teacher can explain things, and above all, 3 o'clock comes and the child gets to go home with the other children. Even for adults, we have the concept of work hours. Federal law does not allow for employers to demand people to work extra hours without pay just because they might be a little slower than their coworkers. And it's an odd thing that children are the only one whom we put into positions where they have to work in unbounded periods of time. The homework day is basically until the work gets done, whereas other aspects of human functioning are done within time containers. What ends up happening is by putting the child in the situation of constant poor grades, constant negativity, constant pressures, what we're teaching is not homework compliance. We're not teaching a love of education. We're teaching exactly those behaviors that we later try to extinguish. The child learns to lie or to forget the assignments, to procrastinate. to misplace work, to argue back. The child basically will learn to do anything but the homework because the homework can't be done, at least not in a reasonable amount of time. The other piece that's very important to understand in the homework trap is that it's not just the child who's trapped, but you as a parent are trapped as well. There are systems going on here. The school is a system and the family is a system. And the natural order of things has the student reporting to his teacher, the teacher is reporting to the principal to the superintendent, and the superintendent is accountable to the Board of Education. At the same time this goes on in the school building, in the home, the child is responsible to the parent. Parents will generally support the school, and if assignments are given, they'll want their children to do them at home. But as long as that parent remains head of the household, these systems can work effectively side by side. What happens is when homework pressures get to be too much and parents are overly required to enforce the rules of the school, it acts as if the parent has now become a middle manager of the school. The parent has a high level of responsibility to make sure that the work gets done, but a very low level of authority to define the assignment. So in effect, that parent or guardian becomes a representative of the teacher, telling the student what to do in terms of educational assignments. And this puts the parent in a very unfavorable position in the school hierarchy, and one which actually undermines their role as the authority in the home. The solution is really very simple. There are three basic steps to the homework trap model that I propose. One is time-bound assignments, one is penalty reductions, and one is a clear statement that parents are the final authorities for matters that go on in their home. The time-bound assignments can be done very easily by the parent with or without the agreement of the school. In fact, interestingly, I just had a situation in which I gave an interview for a news article, and the writer apparently used the concept of time-bound assignments and reported in a 3-week period a dramatic difference in the child's performance and willingness to do homework assignments. I also know of a situation in which a person ended up giving copies of my book to all of her child's teachers at the end of the school year, and although the teachers did not verbally agree to the plan, they actually acted on the plan and the child ended up doing well, whereas the child would not have otherwise done well. So basically, a parent can institute the time-bound rule by themselves. However, it does become important to get the school on board with penalty reductions, and the two instances I've talked about were really end-of-year instances with children that are in the high school level. If your child's in an earlier grade, you have several years ahead, and you're going to be dealing with different teachers at different times. So it's important to get in place the notion that the work is going to be time-bound and that the child will not be penalized as long as the child works within that agreed-upon amount of time. And then the final thing is that it's important for parents to have the final say in matters in their home. Those hierarchies that I showed in the prior slide are extremely important for human functioning. People work well in hierarchies, and it just does not work to supplant the authority of the parent for decisions in the home being made by someone outside the home. That's a very simple explanation of my model. The psychological basis for this, the scientific basis for why this really works, is articulated in what I think are pretty easy to understand terms in my book, The Homework Trap. As I said, the one person I know gave copies of The Homework Trap to all of this high school students' teachers and made the point of what she wanted. Nobody agreed, but they evidently read it. The book is easy to read, and they ended up acting on those concepts. If your child is younger, you really want to get this instituted into a 504 plan unless you feel confident that people will voluntarily go with the recommendations you want. And the problem with 504 plans is that 504 plans are only as good as the concepts that the school has to put into those plans. Typically, a 504 plan will involve more time, but it won't involve less work. More time is a fine accommodation at school because it's really redistributed time within the fixed amount of time of the school day. More time at home doesn't help you at all because you need less work so that the child has a doable amount of work within a reasonable amount of time. So for that, you need to get the school to put it in a 504. They may not know about the 504. You may even need an advocate or a lawyer to help you out. But that's to be seen. You need to start with the principals and see where it goes from there. Hello, I'm Dr. Kenneth Goldberg. I'd like to offer a simple and quick explanation of my model, the homework trap.